Look, sometimes it's hard to keep things straight. And Will Haynes, our executive producer, I was texting this morning because I was at a school function for my kids. And I said, let me know what we're thinking about, what we're leaning with. And I got an article from CNN, of all places, that it said was going to be like an 8-minute read. And I was driving. I was like, I got to get Siri to read me this article. And it started with that chaos had erupted in a Trump case. Which case is this? This is back to Mar-a-Lago documents. So again, I know a lot of you think the Jack Smith case, again, about the Mar-a-Lago documents was permanently or on hold. And yes, that is happening. But I think, Will, before we get to what became a epic screaming match, so much so that it seems like we're getting nowhere in this case. Why is this still even happening?
That's right. So if you remember, we told you that the trial date was indefinitely on hold in this case, meaning that the judge had removed her order for a May 20th start date and did not reschedule it, meaning that there's no time in the future that this is scheduled to start. And she then said it was because of a myriad of pretrial issues that they had to work through. Well, that's what they're starting to do. This is the first time that they've been back in her courtroom.
They still have these pretrial, even though she's like, this can't happen, the pretrial situations, those
there
still
are
occur.
Motions that are filed by both sides. There are things they have to work out before they can even get to a place where this can go to trial. And so this was the first of many of these hearings that will be taking place at least through the end of July. And that won't even exhaust all of the pretrial issues they have to get to before this could effectively be taken to trial. So they're still arguing over a lot of things, over sealed documents. You saw earlier in the week that there were some previously sealed documents that the judge unsealed,
right,
one of which was a search warrant from the FBI that authorized the use of deadly force. So there are a lot of things that are coming out of this, but one of the major things, as they were going through these myriad of pretrial motions that they were arguing over, that the judge questioned whether or not a jury will be able to understand the charges that are here.
I want you to hear this. This is from that article, again from CNN, and it says, Cannon seems skeptical of these arguments while also expressing concern about a jury's ability to understand the legal nuances of the case at a future trial. Again, a trial that right now is theoretical, if you will.
Right.
The quote was, real people have to decide these issues. So again, really pushing forward to the fact of at some point, I mean, somewhat the judge is saying, beyond my pay grade, if you will, so real people have got to decide what's happening here, and I don't even know if they can fully understand it. And when we say it got heated, from all the reports I've seen, like, it was a screaming match.
That's right.
Inside this courtroom.
That's right. And some of these issues have to do with a motion that was brought forward by the defendant Nauda, which was an assistant to President Trump at Mar-a-Lago that has also been charged in this. And if you'll remember, his attorney is the one who alleged that the prosecutors were trying to pressure Nauda into cooperating by offering a favorable opinion when it comes to a judgeship for that attorney.
And this is
was brought up.
And this, by the way, for timeline wise, that was only back in the end of 2022.
That's right.
So I mean, we're not talking about something that was 4 years ago. We got to I know we have to start looking at context and timeline, because where we are now, it feels like the Trump Mar-a-Lago raid was like a decade ago.
Right.
But really, we're only talking about a couple years ago. They said the heated proceedings Wednesday. I mean, this is crazy. They were yelling, this didn't happen. The story of what's happening at this meeting is a fantasy. This is all going on inside a courtroom, and of course it's over President Trump or somehow connected to President Trump. I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this? Does this just need to be thrown out? It feels like that's where we're at. It even feels like that's where the judge is at. And of course, they're going to slander and say the judge is a Trump-appointed judge. But just as all presidents do, there are every president. Go look around the country. You're going to find some president appointed judge. It's how it works. But of course, that's how the media is going to spin this.
Some people think champions are born, that it's a title that requires something only a handful can ever possess.
There are times in our lives that we are called, every one of us, to step up and serve a cause greater than ourselves.
Even when the loudest voices in the room say it's wrong, that it can't be done. It can be a difficult stand, but it's one any of us can make, including you.
You can be the change. You can make that difference.
You can be a champion. We cannot do what we do without you.
By becoming a monthly donor, you can become a champion of life.
A champion of liberty, a champion of freedom.
Please join us. Become an ACLJ champion today.
Welcome back to Secular. When you hear that these cases are devolving into legitimately the judge, Eileen Cannon, having to yell things like, "You're going to need to calm down," like quoting Taylor Swift, I feel like is what's happening here. She didn't quote Taylor Swift. I added that part to it. She didn't say, to quote Taylor Swift, "You're going to need to calm down," but was yelling that at these lawyers as they started to go back and forth about the story that was presented of whether a judgeship was being essentially bribed, dangled,
right,
for this to happen. Obviously, this is about, for those who are just joining us, know a lot of you are just joining us, probably need to reset. This is related to the Mar-a-Lago documents case, which you may think, hey, Logan, last time you said this was permanently on hold. It is still on hold because of all of these pretrial issues, as Will was saying earlier, but they still have to work those way through those pretrial issues.
Right.
But this judge is thinking, we may not get there.
That's right. And so yesterday was the first since her postponement of the trial indefinitely of these hearings they'll be holding on pretrial issues. Now, they know that these will at least go through late July, but even that won't resolve all of the pretrial issues if they go perfectly.
Yeah, and there is
to get to a trial.
CNN, again, I read their report. And, their theory, or what they want to float out there, is that because this is a Trump-appointed judge, they're playing the long game here to try to get him to be elected and then for the case to be dismissed. But because President Trump can pretty much get himself out of it at that point. But that's not really what's happening here.
Right.
What's happening here is there are so many issues. There's so much corruption. There's issues with how the documents were obtained, the photos that were taken, the plans that were made, the deadly force. All of these issues that keep coming up in these pretrial situations makes the case just fraught with error.
That's right. And every time something new is discovered, whether it be the filing that was just a couple weeks ago that said, yeah, we had originally told the court that the documents were preserved exactly as we found them. That wasn't accurate. Actually, some of it got mixed up, so we mishandled these documents we were accusing the president of mishandling. Yeah. Those issues keep coming up because the Jack Smith team isn't necessarily doing a great job at running this prosecution. And so yesterday, some of these issues that were coming forward was that the defendant, Nauta, he was wanting to have his charges dismissed based on the grounds that he was being selectively prosecuted because he didn't cooperate with the government early on. And that's actually where his attorney, Woodward, brought up the fact that the prosecutor had dangled a judgeship before him.
Right.
Now, the prosecutor pushed back, yelled, screamed, slammed his fist on the table in the courtroom saying, this is a fantasy.
Fantasy. Garbage argument is what he said also. This is a garbage argument. Mr. Woodward's story of what happened at that meeting is a fantasy. They said as banging on his hand on the lectern in front of him. It did not happen. Again, a bunch of, he said, she said at that point, and the judge is saying, yeah, we're going to probably take this to the people to decide.
Right. So that one, she did not rule on the bench on whether or not to throw his charges out. Yeah. That doesn't mean that she couldn't. She didn't rule anything on it at that point. That she'll rule later at whether or not to grant his dismissal of the charges. But also, it did start to get back and forth with the prosecutor and the defense attorney of saying, well, you didn't record the meeting we had. And then the defense counsel saying, I'll go under oath on the stand to testify to it. So it's getting heated. It's chaotic. And that's not even the end all be all of the issues that they had yesterday.
Like you said, this could take not only this one, but this will take at least through the mid to late summer.
That's right. And then there was another issue, and this is where the judge was concerned about the jury's ability to understand it.
Yeah.
And this is where some of the charges that were filed, and these were all the defendants brought this claim and asking for the charges to be thrown out, where some of the charges read exactly the same or were worded almost precisely the same. So it got confusing whether or not it was the same charge or if it were different counts of the charge. And the prosecution's explanation was, don't worry, we'll explain it all to the jury when it gets to them. And the judge was then saying, now she didn't say, I'm going to throw the case out on these grounds, but She said still have to make a ruling, but did say she was concerned about the jury's ability to understand the legal nuances in the case at a future trial. Yeah. And the quote from CNN says, real people have to decide these issues. I also think that was a little bit of shade towards the prosecutor and the defense saying, you're not acting like real people right now.
Yeah. No one goes into court. I mean, yes, courts get very heated. And look, maybe this is what we need. Maybe that's what we need in America. Maybe we need to go a bit back to the olden days. We need to go back to the parliamentary hearings of the United Kingdom where you just scream and yell, chaos breaks out, people clap, people boo, people cheer. You know, there was a while there where that kind of went away in America. I'm not so sure we don't need a little bit of it. Like a little, like it's kind of like what goes on currently in the Capitol.
Right.
Like I don't care for a lot of it, but a little bit of it, you are speaking for, you are representing someone in this situation, or you are representing your people. And if sometimes you got to kick it up a notch, okay. But in this instance, the judge is even saying, real people have to decide these, not you screaming, you know, this is a fantasy. It does feel very television. And it's sad. It's not on TV, though, right? We don't get
That's
to
right. No,
we don't get to watch this. The best we're going to get,
not on TV.
The best we're going to get is 24-hour news, live tweeting it, as you said, live posting it on the side of your screen in red. They all went with red.
They did.
I don't know why. They all, even the colors of the channels that aren't red. Like you say, Fox, the main color is probably not red. It's probably blue. But they went red on the.
I wonder if it's an easier contrast to read.
I'm sure there's a reason. There's a ratings and advertising driven, nature to all of it. Cece, cases like when you've been in the courtroom, is this common that you get into these kind of screaming matches? Is it fun?
No, it's not fun. And I'm going to get my mom's quote completely wrong, but she's like, when you don't have the facts, you pound on the desk. If you don't have the law, you scream. And if you don't have the facts and law, you scream and pound on the desk. And so I think maybe we're seeing a little bit of that in action of you just get frustrated and, it's just emotions rise.
Everyone's got a temper.
I have seen screaming in the courtroom.
Which, it brings up a whole other conversation, too. I was thinking about that this morning just driving in. It's the fairness of news media is obviously, because I was listening to this 7-page article from CNN that came out this morning. And you do think about how as soon as, look, it's just part of the nature of the business. So this is a world filled with consumerism, and it's a commercial business, and that's fine. But as soon as the news media and advertising became hand in hand, the idea of completely objective news dissolved. And or you could even say advertising or even federal funding. So you could say, what they give to NPR. Because all of a sudden, even if the advertiser is not dictating what's on the show, they certainly can dictate in some ways what's not on the show. And they can be a decision maker on how things are proceed because they can withhold their funding, which is the only way these networks make money. Now, there are independent news sources. There's people like us who, by the way, are not supported traditionally by advertisers. There's been advertisers here and there, but for the most part, 99% of, more than that, 99.9% of what we do here at the ACLJ and on this broadcast is by you, powered by you. And what we've always told you at the ACLJ, what I've always told you is, I will not tell you what you want to hear. I will tell you the truth, because I know when you make a donation to the ACLJ, when you support our work, if we're going to report back to you just the facts, obviously there are times, coming up in the next segment, we're going to talk about an ACLJ case. That is what the funding, is going to me. That's going to help people with their legal bills, so they don't have to pay for any legal bills. We take care of all of that. So if you become an ACLJ client at aclj.org/help, if you need legal help, that's at no cost. That's because we have people like you who support the organization and who financially back it and give monthly. And I appreciate that tremendously, but it also stops us from being filtered by anyone. The only thing we are being filtered by maybe is because we are still on terrestrial radio and because of who we are. There's certain words we're not using. That's about it. No one's telling us what topic. We didn't get a call from corporate this morning saying, here's what the headline is. And when you read this sort of 8-page, good for CNN. They gave a very broken down version of it. But of course, they have to end it with some form of, hinting at a conspiracy, hinting at this is only happening to delay a case to the point because this judge feels like, she has to do this because Trump appointed her. Again, it goes back to the start of this conversation, which is all judges are appointed by somebody. So then you can say the same for pretty much any case in any way. If it's a case that involves a Republican or a Democrat, that because X person, whether it's Barack Obama or Jimmy Carter, for that matter, put them in place.
They appointed judges.
Yeah, appointed judges. Their job is not to be just controlled by whatever president or future president or past president. Not to say they don't have their own political beliefs or feelings. And by the way, they should be able to do that. I believe freedom of speech for justices, judges, and all of that does not end because they are taking these roles. But I want to hear from you. Give me a call at 1-800-684-3110. When you hear these cases are devolving this way, does it give you more hope because you see that the absurdity of some of these cases are starting to, wiggle their way into the American zeitgeist, where even CNN is going, this is chaos. Okay, this can't, the judge is saying it can't happen. We think it can't happen. Do you feel that way? Or does it just make you feel like we're getting closer and closer to a catastrophic meltdown here in this country?
The ACLJ's work at the UN Human Rights Council is extremely important. The Human Rights Council is the entity within the United Nations body that is responsible for promoting and protecting all human rights. As the UN is currently the international stage to address these issues, we want to make sure we are there speaking up for the victims of religious persecution who are often dismissed and overlooked. Ministry of Presence is actually a very effective tool when fighting for justice. Through our European Center for Law and Justice, which is an NGO, we participate in each session, drafting written submissions and delivering oral interventions covering the most egregious human rights and religious liberty violations. We are committed to defending religious liberty and human rights worldwide, and we will continue to be actively engaged at the UN Human Rights Council and with its subsidiaries every chance we get. Visit aclj.org for more information.
Welcome back to Secular. Will Haynes, executive producer, joining me in studio. Will, I think we need a reset because so many thousands of you are joining us right now. Clearly, we struck a nerve. You want to know what happened inside these courtrooms? Well, if you're brand new, I'm going to ask you to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. Do that right now as Will restates the chaos that broke out in the courtroom, including yelling, "You are living a fantasy." That sort of stuff is happening right now. Will, go ahead.
That's right. So Judge Eileen Cannon held hearings yesterday. This is on the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case that was brought by special counsel Jack Smith. So she had indefinitely postponed the trial date to begin the trial of the former president. However, they're having to go through a litany of pretrial motions. And some of these motions were brought up yesterday. Two of them were to dismiss the case outright based off of prosecutorial misconduct in some cases, such as maybe potentially offering the defense counsel of one of the defendants judgeship, dangling that before him. And that broke chaos out into the courtroom as the prosecutors and the defense were both displeased with each other, shouting back and forth, pounding the tables, and also some issues that were brought up. The judge said, "I'm not even certain the jury can understand the legal nuances that you're trying to put forward here, prosecution." So as a matter of the status of where this stands, the case will be going through all these pretrial motions, but the trial date is indefinitely postponed. And if it continues to go like this, I'm not sure that many of these issues will ever get resolved, which really draws a big question mark if this case will ever make it to trial.
Yep. Now we turn to you. Let's go ahead and start off the top. James is calling from Arkansas, watching on YouTube, been on hold for about a half an hour. I appreciate it, James. You're on the air.
Yeah, man. First, can I say that I'm a little peed off all these illegals are letting in, and they're not helping homeless veterans.
Yeah, James, I understand. I think there's a lot of feelings like that when you see how much the money is being spent on these situations at the border,
right?
And how much we are not spending on, like you said, like on the veterans. I remember when there was that time where they were telling current active duty servicemen to get food stamps. And I was going, there is a time where the dignity of people needs to outweigh even our politics.
The dignity of the best of America, which are those that fight for our freedom, defend our freedom, and should be taken care of.
Yeah, so James,
regardless.
We agree. I know that wasn't your question, though. Go ahead with your question.
No, well, that was the most important part anyway.
All right, that's fine with me, James. That's what you got. That's good with me. I appreciate you calling, and I couldn't agree more. Let's go ahead and continue on. We got a couple lines now open. 1-800-684-3110. That's at 1-800-684-3110. Let's go to William, who's calling in the state of Texas. Watching on YouTube as well. William, thank you for watching on YouTube. Welcome.
You're welcome. Yeah, I have a legal question to ask you. If Trump wins the New York case, can the judge do a judgment notwithstanding the verdict and then reverse that and find him guilty?
Here's what I'm going to tell you. Well, I mean, you can find out. We're going to find out the information for you. As you may know, Will and I are not the attorneys here on this broadcast. But here's what I'm going to tell you, William. Tomorrow, we're going to have these attorneys on the broadcast, and then my brother will be joining us back next week. We're going to have a lot of those legal minds there. I don't want to give you legal opinions, and I cannot give you without a certainty. And I want to tell people who are calling in general, but Will's got something.
So a judgment notwithstanding the verdict would be basically the judge going around the jury. And in this case, no, the judge cannot do that. So just direct answer. An attorney got me the answer very quickly, so I want to thank for that.
We got a great team here,
but
folks.
I will say that in this case, no, the judge would not be able to do that. Yeah. So if he were to prevail in this case in New York, that would be the final word for that.
Yep. So that answered your question, but also due to some of those legal questions, if you do have them, we obviously have attorneys like CC Heil on the broadcast most days. Again, my brother will be back in just a few days. So a lot of those voices you're going to hear from all the time. So always ask those questions and we'll answer as many as we can. Let's keep it going. Hey, now we've opened up like 4 lines, by the way. So I'm going to say this is probably the last chance to call in because we only got about 5 minutes left in the broadcast. But you can do that right now at 1-800-684-3110. And I also want to encourage you to do a couple things before we take these last calls. I'm going to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ by going to aclj.org. Take a look at I don't just mean support the work financially. I do think you should, but we provide incredible amount of resources, content. You heard about the situation in California earlier in the broadcast. We can do that because of your support, but all the content, everything is available for absolutely no cost. Go to aclj.org. And if you need help, aclj.org/help, legal help. We are there for you. Let's go to John, who's calling in Illinois. Watching on YouTube also. We got YouTube Day. John, you're on the air.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I know this is another legal question, but on the Mar-a-Lago case, doesn't the misplacement of place cards and mishandling Jack Smith has done with these documents give the whole defense the right to deniability of what classified documents they want to say were in these boxes?
Like I think that I think the judge has said this is fraught with so many issues right now, whether it is the fact that there was now pretty much definitive. We know a lot of those photos that we saw were not what was presented. We know that the documents were not handled correctly. So, John, you're right. There are so many legal issues that are coming upon this, and these pretrial things that are erupting into chaos are just more of a result of that.
So what John's asking about is specifically, you'll remember the pictures even that were released of the documents that were staged across the floor at Mar-a-Lago, and there were the placeholders that said classified documents. We found out through filings that those were actually brought by the FBI for the staged photo. Those weren't actually those placeholders, those red color slips that said classified documents and things. Those weren't actually in the boxes. They used that as a symbol for what was there that they removed. So John's asking about that, coupled with the fact that the evidence was admitted to being out of sorts, out of order within the discovery boxes and the evidentiary boxes, that the special counsel admitted that before the court. Does that give some sort of defense for the president? What it seems, as Logan pointed out, is that those are issues that they're going to have to address. There will be filings. There are all these pretrial motions, and that is the exact reason why the case has been placed on indefinite hold as far as a start date with the trial. So all of that will continue to play out. There will be more hearings and more hearings. They said that they're at least scheduled to go through the end of July, but they don't even believe all of those issues will be resolved by then. So it's going to be very interesting to watch what comes out of these hearings as we move along, because there's more coming.
Marty's calling from Tennessee, on line 1, who's watching on YouTube. Great. Welcome. You're on the air.
Yeah, I'm a subscriber on YouTube. Appreciate all you do. My question is, when cases like this happen with the high offices in the land, and what prompted my curiosity is when it says it's too complicated for jurors. Aren't we looking at a case that involves constitutional law rather than civil law or any other kind of normal federal law, that it should go to a court that's designed for this? It doesn't involve normal jurors?
Well, Marty, the law still has to be followed. And the process of how this works is that the prosecutors brought charges, and it has to start at the lowest court in the system. It's still a federal court. It's still in the federal court system. It's a district court. And once that trial is over, if it ever gets to trial, then the former president, if he was convicted, would have a chance to appeal that to a higher court. Now, I wouldn't be in favor of short-circuiting the system just because of the stakes of the matter. But that's why they have these pretrial conferences and hearings, are to try to boil it down to what actually is being charged. Did the prosecution make it way too complicated? Can they resolve some of these issues before it even gets to a jury? And that's what you're seeing play out. It's a part of the process, and it will continue to go through. And despite what some on the left may think, I do think that Judge Cannon is very competent and is taking this very seriously.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, I want to thank all of you who called in today, all the people who joined us, whether that was obviously Will here, myself, I thank myself, CC Heil. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your prayers. I always appreciate it. But we have seen now the government, we've talked about it all day, the government targeting basically a lot of us because of their political leanings. Political rivals are being targeted, whether that's us or whether that is former presidents of the United States. We've also heard about your faith, your religious freedom under attack in places like Southern California. And we can get involved, and we're going to get involved. The ACLJ is taking action. So whether you're a kid in a public school who is banned from carrying the Bible, or you are, a president of the United States who is being persecuted, we are there for you because of the support of the members of the ACLJ. And when I say members, these are people who say, yes, we want to fight against the attacks of faith. We want to fight against the attacks that are coming upon people who have conservative views, Christian views. Really, that's what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a lot of you evangelical Christians. I know evangelical Christians or Christian Zionists and all these have become dirty words, but they aren't to us and they aren't around here. Become a member of the ACLJ today, either again with a one-time donation or become an ACLJ champion. That is someone that supports the work of the ACLJ on a monthly basis. So when you need us, we're there for you. And if you do need us right now, if you heard maybe about that case in California or the situation in California, if you heard about any of these situations, you think, that's me, that happened to me, that happened to my workplace, that happened, maybe I work for the government, this is what happened. Go to aclj.org/help. I encourage you to do that right now. Fill out that form and be assigned to an attorney. Again, it's at zero cost to you ever. Our clients do not get charged. I want to make sure that's always clear and always known. If your rights are being infringed upon, we're here to help.